The Long Beach Arena holds 7,000 people on a good night. Tonight is exactly that. Every seat is taken, and the standing sections at the back are packed to a degree that would make a fire marshal nervous, if one were actually here. But he isn't, because gatherings like this thrive in the comfortable space between official oversight and raw enthusiasm. It is October 1972, the International Karate Championships, an event that pulls the serious martial arts community from across California and beyond. It draws those who train out of pure love, those who train because they have something to prove, and those who can no longer tell the distinction because they have blurred the two motivations for so long. Bruce Lee is sitting in row 7. He has been there since the doors first opened. He came because martial arts competitions captivate him the way any genuine expression of discipline does, as data, as raw information, as something to analyze and learn from. He didn't announce his arrival. He simply bought a standard ticket at the box office, found his seat, and has spent the last 3 hours observing the matches with a total, absolute focus. To an outsider, it looks like ordinary watching, but it is anything but ordinary. No one has recognized him yet. Wearing a dark jacket and keeping his chin tucked slightly, he blends into the loud, busy arena where everyone's eyes are glued to the ring rather than the crowd. This anonymity is intentional and deeply valued. He attends these events precisely because it allows him to observe without being observed, to learn without performing, to exist in a room full of fighters without the whole environment shifting toward him, the way rooms always do when they realize who he is. His close friend and student, Dan Inosanto, sits 2 seats to his left. Between them is Raymond, whose ties to Dan's training circle secured them these excellent seats. Raymond has been providing a steady stream of commentary most of the evening. Dan listens with patience, Bruce offers no acknowledgement, far too absorbed in the ring to process Raymond's words. For the last 40 minutes, Bruce's attention has been fixed on a young man who is dominating the tournament. Steven Seagal is just 20 years old. Standing 6 feet 4 inches, he possesses a massive physical presence that seems to occupy more space than he actually takes up. He has trained in Aikido since childhood, including time spent in Japan learning from master practitioners. What he is doing in the ring tonight is genuinely impressive by any honest standard. He moves through opponents with a level of confidence that isn't quite arrogance yet, or at least, not entirely. It is the raw confidence of a young man discovering exactly what his training can do when tested against real resistance instead of compliant partners. He has won 6 straight matches, each faster than the previous one. The last 3 ended in under a minute, driving the crowd into a mounting frenzy. 7,000 people who arrived for a standard competition are now witnessing what feels like a coronation, and they are making plenty of noise about it. After his 6th victory, Seagal takes the microphone from the event promoter. What he does next is what talented young men sometimes do when handed a microphone, a roaring crowd, and the intoxicating rush of being told they are extraordinary. He speaks. He starts out reasonably, thanking his instructors and explaining why he believes Aikido is the most complete martial art in America. He talks about the necessity of real training versus training for show, separating technique that actually works from technique that merely looks good. These points are defensible, even true, and the crowd cheers because it validates why they are all there. Then, his tone shifts. "I want to talk about something that bothers me," Seagal says, his voice hitting that perfect, intimate register that microphones reward. "Because I sit here and I win this competition, and I think about what martial arts is supposed to be. Then I think about what is being sold to American audiences as martial arts right now, and it bothers me. Because what's being sold isn't this," Seagal says, gesturing to the ring. "What's being sold is movies. Choreography. Bruce Lee doing things on camera that look incredible but have absolutely nothing to do with real fighting." The crowd's reaction is fractured. Some nod, pleased to hear their private thoughts voiced publicly. Some shift uncomfortably, having seen Enter the Dragon and feeling unsure they agree. Others simply love the sheer audacity of a famous name being challenged out loud. "I respect what he does as entertainment," Seagal continues, though the word entertainment carries the slight edge of someone who isn't being entirely respectful. He's a tremendous performer. His films are exciting. But if you put Bruce Lee in a real combat situation against a trained Aikido practitioner, the outcome would be very different from what you see on screen. Very different. Because movie fighting isn't fighting, and someone needs to be honest about that. The arena erupts into a chaotic mix of 7,000 different reactions. Dan leans over to Bruce. He's 20 years old. Bruce doesn't say a word. He keeps watching Seagal with the exact same unblinking focus. He reads him, assesses him, learning everything there is to know about this specific person. He sees undeniable talent, real discipline, and physical gifts that dwarf most people in the room. But he also sees a young man who hasn't yet encountered the edge of his own understanding. Seagal raises the microphone again, sensing the division in the crowd and moving to pull everyone onto his side. "I'll make an offer," he says, letting the words hang. "A public offer, right now. If Bruce Lee wants to step into this ring tonight, I will show this crowd what real Aikido does against Kung Fu. No scripts, no camera angles, no choreography. Just two men finding out what's actually true." I don't expect him to accept, because I don't think he can. The noise inside the arena is deafening now, a mixture of wild support, discomfort, and the pure bloodlust of a crowd that desperately wants a fight to happen. Row 7 remains perfectly still. Dan looks at Bruce. Raymond has finally gone quiet. Bruce stares at the ring, his expression unchanged from the last 3 hours. His hands rest on his knees, his breathing is steady. Then, he stands up. "Bruce," Dan says, his voice carrying that specific weight of warning and understanding. Bruce glances at him briefly, not dismissively, but with a look that says he hears him, he understands, and his mind is already made up. He steps out of the row and into the aisle. The recognition spreads in waves. First, the 30 or 40 people directly around him realize who he is. Their reaction ripples outward like a stone dropped in still water, ring after ring, until even the furthest edges of the arena are reacting to something they can't quite see yet. 7,000 people turn their gaze away from the ring and toward the aisle where Bruce Lee is calmly walking forward. The roar builds from the outside in, a strange reversal of how crowd noise usually works. The sound reaches Seagal through the confused expressions of the people in the front rows. He turns and sees Bruce Lee standing at the base of the ring steps. Seagal's face betrays a flash of pure, unguarded surprise, the look that happens when a hypothetical scenario becomes reality much faster than the mind can prepare for. Bruce climbs the steps, slips through the ropes, and walks to the center of the ring, facing Seagal. The arena is louder than it has been all night, a chaotic symphony of shock, anticipation, and the thrill of witnessing the entirely unexpected. Seagal recovers quickly. He is young, talented, and brave, which is both his finest quality and his biggest problem tonight. Holding the microphone, he keeps his voice steadier than most 20-year-olds could manage. "Well," he says, "here he is." The crowd roars. Bruce remains silent, still reading, still analyzing, doing what he always does before a physical exchange, understanding his opponent completely. Seagal lowers the microphone slightly, his tone shifting from a performance to an actual conversation in front of thousands. "You heard what I said," Seagal says. "I heard," Bruce replies. His voice doesn't carry to the back, but the front rows hear it clearly, and the words travel back through the sections. "And you're here," Seagal says. "I'm here," says Bruce. Underneath the bravado, Seagal's expression grows complicated. He has spent the night winning. He has years of training, great technique, and genuine belief. But facing Bruce Lee up close in a ring is entirely different from talking about it. He hands the microphone to the promoter, Gerald, a veteran of the business who is currently trapped between pure panic and promotional ecstasy. Gerald steps to the ropes. "Ladies and gentlemen, it appears we have an unplanned addition to tonight's program, no commentary," Bruce says quietly, but the microphone catches it. Gerald lowers the mic and steps back. The referee, Patterson, steps in to establish brief, quiet terms. No strikes to the head. This is a demonstration, not a competition. Stop on a submission or mutual agreement. Both men nod. Patterson steps away. Seagal drops into his Aikido stance. It is flawless, proper weight distribution, correct hand height, a rock-solid base. He looks exactly like what he is, a dedicated martial artist on the verge of what he believes will be a defining moment. Bruce, by contrast, keeps his hands at his sides, feet comfortable. He looks like a man waiting for a pattern he has already deciphered. Seagal moves first, stepping forward with a decisive wrist grab, the classic Ikkyo entry, aiming for Bruce's right wrist to initiate a redirection and throw. His timing is sharp, his grip powerful. But Bruce's wrist isn't there. To the back rows, it looks like Seagal simply lunged and missed. The front rows see something far more precise, Bruce's wrist rotating away from the grip in a movement so microscopic and swift that Seagal's reach couldn't track it. Simultaneously, Bruce's other hand touches Seagal's extended forearm, a contact that redirects without blocking, guiding Seagal's own momentum so that he carries 2 steps past Bruce. Seagal recovers fast, turning back and resetting, his expression sharpening as he upgrades his assessment of the danger. He attacks again, adapting his entry. He drives forward with both hands, targeting Bruce's collar, trying to close the distance and use his massive size and strength to make the fight heavy and dense. As Seagal reaches for his jacket, Bruce is already inside the space. Instead of backing away, he steps toward Bruce, the counterintuitive answer to a grab. His shoulder brushes Seagal's chest, his hand contacts Seagal's elbow from below. Instantly, Seagal's own force is inverted. He finds himself off balance, his feet on the canvas but his center entirely compromised. It has been 3 seconds. The crowd is making a low, collective sound, not a cheer, but the sound of 7,000 minds frantically recalibrating what they are watching. Seagal resets once more. His breathing has changed, it's the breath of a young man who just walked through a door and found an entirely unexpected room. He charges with absolute commitment, throwing his full weight behind a technique that had successfully downed 6 opponents tonight. Bruce stops him not with raw power, but with perfect placement. He steps to the exact millimeter that neutralizes Seagal's forward momentum. His palm meets Seagal's chest at the precise vector where Seagal's own mass becomes a liability. Seagal goes down. Not violently, but correctly, his back hitting the canvas with a clean thud. He lies there for a second, staring up at the arena lights, his mind processing what just occurred. The arena erupts. Bruce steps back. He doesn't celebrate or look at the crowd. He watches Seagal with an expression that isn't satisfaction, because satisfaction implies the outcome was in doubt, and isn't worry, because Seagal isn't hurt. It is an expression of deep patience. Seagal gets back up, his form still technically perfect even in defeat. He stands and looks at Bruce, his face completely honest in front of the crowd. He isn't going to attack again, the crowd can see the fight has left him. "Sensei," Seagal says. "It isn't a challenge. It's a plea to understand. Do that again so I can see it." Bruce pauses, then steps forward. He executes the technique again at a fraction of the speed, walking Seagal through the geometry, showing him the foot placement, the angle of the palm, the exact moment the momentum shifts. In the center of the ring, in front of 7,000 people, he begins to teach. Seagal watches intently, his eyes tracking every movement like a true student. He tries the technique himself, feeling for the underlying principle rather than just copying the physical shape. The arena has transformed into a massive classroom. Dan Inosanto stands at ringside, arms folded, a look of quiet satisfaction on his face. Gerald the promoter stands 20 feet away, holding his silent microphone, realizing he has just witnessed an entertainment event dissolve into something completely genuine. Suddenly, a shift occurs in Seagal's corner. 3 of his students have been watching since he went down. 2 remain still, processing the shock. The third, a 19-year-old named Marcus, has confused loyalty with aggression. He climbs through the ropes, his face twisted with the conviction that he is correcting an injustice. You think that's real? Marcus demands, marching toward Bruce, his voice entirely too loud. You think that proves something? He didn't know what you were doing. That wasn't a fair test. Fight me. Let's see if it works when someone is ready for it. Dan steps through the ropes immediately, not to fight, but to be a calming presence. Bruce turns to Marcus without an ounce of urgency. Patterson tries to intervene, but Marcus is locked in. Bruce looks at the teenager. You're not angry about this fight. Marcus blinks. What? You're angry about something else, Bruce says quietly. The fight is just the direction your anger found. The front rows fall completely silent. The words carry the heavy weight of truth spoken in a place where truth is rare. Marcus's face flickers through a dozen emotions in a matter of seconds. You don't know anything about me, Marcus mutters, though the sharp edge of his voice is gone, blunted by the accuracy of the statement. You're right, Bruce agrees. I don't. But I know that whatever you are carrying into this ring tonight isn't going to be settled here. What you're carrying belongs somewhere else. The arena is dead silent. Marcus stands frozen, his body still primed to react, but his mind forced to consider. And considering in front of 7,000 people is an uncomfortable thing. Marcus, Seagal speaks up from the center of the ring. It is a single word, but it carries a wealth of meaning. Stop. I understand. This isn't what I need from you. Marcus hesitates for another moment, then walks back to the corner and sits heavily on the second rope. The posture isn't defeat, it's the sudden, profound exhaustion that hits when the anger driving you suddenly evaporates. Seagal looks at Bruce, then picks up the microphone from the ring post. He holds it for a moment, a far cry from the performed silence of earlier. This is the silence of a man choosing his words with immense care. I said something from this ring tonight, Seagal says, his voice steady, though the effort is visibly costing him. I said Bruce Lee was a performer and not a fighter. I said that in front of 7,000 people. He pauses. I was wrong. The arena responds with a warm, generous roar, the kind of applause a crowd gives when someone young manages to do something incredibly difficult. I've been training Aikido for 8 years, Seagal continues. I thought I understood what real martial arts was. Tonight, I realize I've been standing in the corner of a room, thinking I could see the whole space. He looks directly at Bruce. I'm sorry for what I said. It was disrespectful to your training and your discipline, and it came from a place of ignorance that I am going to have to sit with. Bruce looks at him, his face displaying a look his close friends recognize as entirely genuine, simply present, observing without judgment. You're 20 years old, Bruce says. And you just did something most men twice your age cannot do. What you just did is harder than anything that happened physically in this ring. Seagal turns the words over in his mind, checking if it's just polite flattery. He realizes Bruce means it. Can I ask you something? Yes. The second technique, Seagal says, hesitating. When I went down. I never felt the moment it started. I don't know when you decided to do it, or where in my attack it became possible. Bruce is quiet for a brief moment. When you stepped forward, your weight committed before your technique was complete. You were already at the destination before you actually arrived. That was the moment. Seagal absorbs this. My weight committed early. Your intention committed early, Bruce clarifies. Your body simply followed the intention. When the intention is visible, the technique becomes entirely predictable. That isn't a flaw in Aikido. That is something that simply requires time. How much time? Seagal asks. Bruce considers it honestly. Years. Maybe many years. It depends entirely on how you use them. Seagal nods. It is a small, quiet nod, worth infinitely more than the confident gestures he was making an hour ago. Gerald the promoter realizes his best move right now is to do absolutely nothing. He keeps his microphone at his side and lets the ring just be a ring. Dan stands beside Bruce, a steady, supportive presence. In the corner, Marcus sits silently with his training partners. The quality of the quiet between them has completely transformed. Bruce looks over at Marcus one last time, walks across the canvas, and stands before the corner. The crowd watches in absolute silence, sensing that the night has moved far past competition into something profound. Whatever it is, Bruce tells Marcus, it doesn't belong in someone else's fight. Marcus looks up, his youthful face defenseless against the truth. I know. And it doesn't have to stay what it is, Bruce says gently. That is the entire point of training. Not to win trophies, but to change what you carry inside you. Marcus is quiet for a moment. Did you ever carry something like that? Yes, Bruce says. What did you do with it? I trained, Bruce answers. For a long time, I trained. And then one day, I noticed it wasn't there anymore. It had become something else. Marcus nods slowly, filing the words away in a deep, accessible place. Bruce places a hand briefly on the boy's shoulder, a light, grounding gesture, then turns back to the center of the ring. He looks at Seagal. You should train with real resistance as much as possible. The technique is genuine, Aikido has real principles. But you need opponents who will not cooperate, who are actively trying to make you fail. That is the only way to find out what actually holds up. Seagal looks at him, his innate drive pushing him forward. Would you train with me? Bruce looks at him for a beat. Yes. The arena reacts to that single word with more genuine warmth than any of the night's official victories. Gerald finally raises his microphone, knowing this is the perfect moment to close. Ladies and gentlemen. I think you've witnessed something tonight that none of us planned, and all of us needed to see. No one disagrees. The crowd rises for a standing ovation, but it lacks the usual performative theater of applause. It is deeply personal, a collective response to something profoundly real that just unfolded before them. Bruce steps through the ropes and down the stairs. Dan falls into step on one side, Raymond, silent for a record-breaking 45 minutes, joins the other. As Bruce walks toward the exit, the aisle is lined with hands reaching out. This time, he connects with more of them than usual, touching hands, meeting eyes. He understands that what just happened in that ring doesn't belong to him alone. It belongs to everyone who was in the room. Behind him, Seagal remains in the ring for another minute, looking down at the canvas where Bruce's feet had been planted. His students gather around him, Marcus included, and they begin to talk in low, altered tones. Gerald wraps up the event efficiently, announcing the official placements and prizes, all of it happening in the massive shadow of an event that will be remembered long after the scores are forgotten. 20 minutes later, backstage, the crowd is thinning out. The official event is over. Seagal tracks Bruce down near the exit, where he is talking to two strangers. Seagal waits with a newfound patience. When Bruce turns and notices him, he ends his conversation to give the young man his full attention. I want to understand the commitment thing, Seagal says. The intention committing before the technique. I've been thinking about it, and I can feel what you mean, but I can't see it in myself. I can't see it from the inside. You won't be able to for a while, Bruce tells him. You're too close to your own movements. You know what they're supposed to do, your body knows, and that knowing dictates how you move. It takes time to develop an external view of your own technique. How do you build that? Slow training with people who will tell you the absolute truth, Bruce says. Video helps sometimes. Meditation helps, it sounds unrelated, but it isn't. And you need partners who are skilled enough to punish you when you commit early. Not to hurt you, but to punish you technically. To make you feel the cost. Seagal listens with absolute, undivided attention, asking a few follow-up questions that Bruce readily answers. They stand in the concrete corridor of the Long Beach Arena for 12 minutes, speaking of technique, training, and the immense difficulty of seeing oneself accurately. It is exactly the conversation both of them had come to this building to find, even if neither knew it when the night began. Eventually, Dan appears down the hall, giving Bruce a look that signifies it's time to go. Bruce hands Seagal the address of his school. Tuesday evenings. Come, and we will work on it. Seagal quickly writes it down in a small notebook he keeps in his jacket. They shake hands, a firm, meaningful grip that registers clearly between both men. Bruce walks out into the cool October night, stepping into the ordinary parking lot of the regular world. It is a world that has no idea what just happened inside, a world that simply keeps moving. But 7,000 people drove home into that night carrying something they hadn't arrived with, the rare knowledge that comes from watching a talented young man err publicly and correct it with dignity, from watching exceptional talent find its boundary and respond with honesty instead of pride, and from being in a room where what everyone expected to happen did not, and what actually happened was infinitely better.